Hello you guys, welcome back to Lily Reads. In today's video, we are going to be doing a winter wrap-up. We are going to talk about all of the books that I read this winter. I'm considering winter January, February, and March, and now we are in spring. So these are the books that I read in the past 3 months. I read exactly 50 books in the past 3 months, which is absolutely crazy, but how my reading year usually goes, I read a bunch of books in the front end, and then on the back end, I become very, very lazy. I become very, very lazy, and I stop reading, or I just don't read as much. I think I become a little bit jaded, word to Miley Cyrus. I think I just start being like, oh, I hate my reading year. I can't find any good books, all of that, and so I just stop reading. So I always start very strong, and then as the quarters continue, it gets a little rough. But these are the books that I read. I think these 3 months of reading were better than all my months of reading last year. I got so many good books. Now, I will say there's not a lot of like standout books, like my favorite books of all time in this list, but I just think consistently reading a good book is what I got for the first 3 months of 2023. Last year, I would get like a great book and then 10 books that I literally do not want to ever read again. So that was kind of what last year was. But this year, every book that I read, most of the time, is pretty solid. So I am going to go through the months, and I am going to tell you like what my favorite book was from each month, my least favorite book from each month, and then we'll continue. So this was my January pile. I read a lot of books in January. We started off really, really strong. Some videos you might remember. I did a Megan Miranda deep dive. I did a book of the month video. What else did I do? That's some stuff that I did. The book of the month video kind of took up a lot of time. I did an entire vlog dedicated to open water. That's what this month was about. But my two standout books for the month of January would be When We Were Bright and Beautiful and The Lifestyle. Both of these books have terrible Goodreads scores. Terrible Goodreads score, and I do not get them. I gave both of these books 5 stars. Obviously, these would be like my top books of 2023 so far. I really, really enjoyed both of these books. Both of these books came from my book of the month video. So yeah, these would be the standout. My two least favorite books that I read in January would be Megan Miranda. 2 Megan Miranda books I gave 1 star. The Girl from Widow Hills and The Last House Guest. So that's pretty much our January best and worst. So then we move on to February, which was my Black History Month vlogs. So my 2 favorite books that month would go to Recitative and Unfairly Cute and Highly Suspicious, but we do have an honorable mention with Amari and the Knight Brothers. But yeah, I think my 2 favorite books that I read in February would go to Recitative by Toni Morrison with a introduction by Zadie Smith, and Unfairly Cute and Highly Suspicious and Unfairly Cute by Talia Hibbert, her young adult debut. My least favorite book, I really don't have a least favorite book in January, but I do think the book that I'm most like, okay, swing and a miss, would be As You Walk On By Jillian Winters. Just wasn't fully for me. I was bored, but I think I still gave this book 2.5, 3 stars. So like, not absolutely terrible, but also not absolutely good. So that would be that on that for this. And so then we go to March. March was a doozy for me. I'm not doing a whole dedicated March wrap up because I was doing this and I don't feel the need to be redundant. But March was not that girl for me. She was not that girl for me. My favorite books of March is by the same author, Home and The Bread the Devil Needs. These are the only books I gave 5 stars to. Like, I did give Reggie and Delilah's Year of Falling 5 stars, but these are the only ones that have like really stuck with me as 5-star reads. So these definitely are two of my favorite books that I read this year. But yeah, it's by the same author, Lisa Allen Augustini. Both of these books, this is a young adult book, this is an adult book, literary fiction. Loved them, absolutely loved them. So yeah, my least favorite book would probably be Magpie right there. Okay, let's move on. Let's move on to some superlatives. First, let's talk about all the books that I DNF'd. I DNF'd 4 books, I think. I DNF'd 4 books. So in January, I did not finish Love on the Brain and The Paris Apartment. Never came back and revisited them. I just, never came back to them. I never finished them. So that would be these 2 books on the DNF list. What else is on the DNF list? We have 2 books on the DNF list in March. So for March, I DNF'd Hook, Line, and Sinker and The Ninth House. They weren't for me. I DNF'd both of these books. And so those would be my 4 DNFs. So I'm just going to sit those to the side because technically I did not read those books. So let's move on. What is my favorite book of all of the books that I read? So not just in its selected month. If I told you that The Lifestyle and When We Were Bright and Beautiful were my favorite for January, Recitative and I'm Fairly Cute, and I Highly Suspicious and I'm Fairly Cute was my favorite for February, and The Bread the Devil Need and Home were my favorite for March, what would be my favorite book of all of them? My favorite book of all of them, my favorite book that I've read so far this year is Highly Suspicious and I'm Fairly Cute. I'm in my young adult era. I am in love with Black YA. I really, really am. I don't know how long this era is going to go for. I've been in this era for about a year and a month because I remember I got in this era after reading Charming as a Verb last February. So I don't know how long this era is going to continue, but this book gave me everything that I needed it to give me. My favorite book of the year so far is Unfairly Cute and Highly Suspicious. Highly Suspicious and Unfairly Cute. Get the title right, can you? My least favorite book. My least favorite books of all the least favorites would be the Megan Miranda duo. The Girl from Widow Hills and The Last House Guest. The thing is, the reason why these are going to go in my lowest is because I'm easily impressed by a thriller. Like, it takes a lot for me to give a thriller less than 3 stars, because like if I had fun, baby, I'm kind of good with having fun, and these books weren't fun, they weren't interesting, they were just, I don't know, I know Megan Miranda has better books. I read a better book. The Last to Vanish was good to me. So these just weren't for me. And I think these are my 2 least favorite books that I've completed this year. So these wouldn't be my 2 least favorite books I read, because those DNFs would be there because I didn't even finish those. But I'm not going to rate books I haven't finished, because who knows, maybe in the last 100 pages, all of those books could have got good. I never know. So books that I finished, these would be my least favorite. Okay, let's move on to my most exciting book that I read. The book I was just like, it was this exciting to read. And then my most boring book that I read. So don't get that confused with my best book and my worst book. It's just the most exciting book that I read and the most boring book that I read. The most exciting book that I read in the past 3 months was Amari and the Night Brothers. I had a blast reading this book. I really, really did. In a way that only middle grade fantasy gives me. There's something about reading a book like this, reading Witchling. Middle grade fantasy gets me hyped. I don't know what it is. Like, I just be so excited. I am so excited for the Witchling sequel that comes out in May, I think. So excited. I love middle grade fantasy, and this book made me so excited. I cannot wait to read the sequel. I'm trying to fit it in next month somehow. Next month, I'm going to try to fit it in somewhere because I can't wait to read it. Amari was the most exciting book that I read. And then the most boring book that I read, unfortunately, goes to Red Island House. This book was just boring. I'm so sorry. Like, it was just boring. Like, it wasn't the worst book that I read. It was just the most boring book that I read. I wouldn't recommend this book to anyone unless I specifically know they like books like this. It's just a very boring book. You're kind of just going through this period of time in this woman's life, and It was boring. I guess I don't have too many ways I can explain that something is boring. And so next, if we have my most exciting and my most boring, we have my most disappointing and we have my most surprising. My most surprising book that I read this in the past 3 months would have to be Have We Met? I picked this book up from Amazon on a whim a long time ago. Not that long ago. It ain't came out that long ago, but definitely sometime last year. I picked this book up on a whim. And I wasn't expecting much. I was just like, it's a black romance. I'm always looking for black romance. I didn't know if it was maybe going to be like a book club thing. I didn't know. So I decided to read this book on my own and just see what was going on with this book. This book is about a girl who finds an app on her phone, and it basically tells her she's going to meet the love of her life, or she's met the love of her life. And once this app is on her phone, people from her past start coming back into her life, and that leads her on like finding her like soulmate through this app and all of that. This book was really good. I gave this book 4 out of 5 stars. I was expecting like very even at best. I was like, it's just going to be like fine and cute, fun time. No, for this book to be so short, and me not hear a single word about it, this book was a really good romance book. This book was better than most of the adult romance that I have read in the past year. I love this book, and there's a sequel. There's a sequel to this book following like a new character finding the app that I have to get my hands on. Oh my goodness. Yeah, most surprising. My most disappointing book, why would I put that down there? It goes back in there. My most disappointing book of the year thus far is Pachinko. Whoa. Number one, this book is really long, so it was an investment to read it. And I was just not blown away by it. I was reading some of the reviews, the good reviews on Goodreads, and I didn't agree with a single one of them. This book just didn't do anything for me. It wasn't like it was bad. It wasn't terrible. It was beautifully written. It just didn't move me in any way. I didn't care passionately about any of the characters. The best part of this book is the historical aspect of it. Learning about the relationship between Japanese and Korean people was really interesting. I learned a lot of things that I did not know. But outside of that, when we get into the plot and the story, it just didn't move me. It just didn't move me the way I believe it should move me. And so my most disappointing read, Pachinko. Okay, the next thing we have is most likely to unhaul and most likely to keep forever. Like no matter where you meet me in life, I'm probably going to own this book. Here's the thing. My most likely to unhaul is easy. These Megan Miranda books are out of here, boy. Like I've been trying to think, because I spend hard-earned money on these books, I try to come up with reasons on why I should keep certain books that I've read. And I can't come up with a reason. I will never reread these books. I will never recommend these books to anyone. And I will never revisit these books. As in, like, even for reference. Like, I literally had to go get these out of my unhaul closet. Yeah, I got a whole closet dedicated to the books I'm getting rid of. And I had to go get these out, and I forgot that I read them. I had to go to Goodreads to fit, because I knew I was missing some books that I read in January. And so much I did not remember these books. And so I had to go find them. And they're just... they were out of sight, out of mind. Like I didn't think about them. That's why I do that. Maybe you should too. I don't know. When I read a book and don't like it, I go put it away, like not on my bookshelf, not anywhere near that, not nowhere near things that I see. So I'll go months, probably the entire year, without seeing the book. And if I didn't think about that book for an entire year, it's worth unhauling. That's what I do to myself. That's why I wait to unhaul my books at the end of the year, because it's just like, okay, this book has a year to go sit in a closet. And if I don't even think about revisiting the book, I don't think about the book, I don't reach for the book, then there's no reason for me to keep the book. An entire year, I never thought about this book. And for the past 3 months, I've never thought about these books. So likely to unhaul. My book that I will keep forever is my UK cover of Amari. You guys cannot see. I always say this, but it's glittery. This is glittery, and it is so goddamn beautiful. So goddamn beautiful. I am going to keep this book forever. I love it. I love it. I love it. Next thing we have is best and worst plot. So the book that I felt has at least the best plot. Like the idea is the best idea I think someone had for a book. And then we have like worst plot, like the plot, like what they came up with, I'm just like, no, you tried, no, flop. Okay, so best plot goes to The Lifestyle. I think The Lifestyle has the most interesting plot. Like, this has nothing to do with how it was executed, whether I think it was executed well or not well. Just the idea that someone came up with. I think The Lifestyle, out of all these books, is the best idea that someone came up with. This is about a career girl bossing woman who finds out that her husband is cheating on her. She finds out that her husband is cheating on her with one of the people who she mentors. So one of the people she mentors is cheating with her husband. She walks in on them having sex. And so she's like, I'm leaving my husband. But she talks to one of her friends, and her friend is like, before you leave your husband, maybe you guys should become swingers. Like, maybe it's just because you guys don't enjoy your sex life. That's why he's cheating, and that's why you're like, I'm leaving him. Maybe if you guys had a healthier sex life, you guys would be a really good couple. So she decides to become a swinger. Her and her husband embark on this journey to become swingers. And to me, that is so interesting. A story about a married couple who's having marital issues becoming swingers, I think is an excellent idea. And so The Lifestyle gets best plot for me. Worst plot goes to Magpie. I'm not going to tell you the plot of this book because I would have to spoil it. But this book takes a plot turn that is just absolutely terrible. It takes a plot turn that is absolutely terrible, and it's the worst plot. Like, I don't know how that got past so many people, that the plot turn that this book was going to take was just uninteresting. This book starts off so interesting, and then the plot turn comes and turns everything that was interesting into like a boring mess. So least favorite plot goes to Magpie. The next thing we have is favorite cover and least favorite cover. My least favorite cover is For Your Own Good. I hate this cover. Like, oh my God. I do not like it. It does nothing for me. Of the books that I've read, it was actually really, like, this isn't the worst cover I've ever seen in my life. There's some solid covers in here. There wasn't anything that was just, like, absolutely hideous, but I deeply dislike this. Like, I deeply dislike this. I'm going back and forth on if I should unhaul this book. I'm thinking about not unhauling it because I think this book, like, would hit for someone. Like, I think I could recommend this book if someone were to come to my house and want to grab a book. I think this is a good book. I think it appeals to a lot of people, but it wasn't for me. But this cover, it's not doing it any favors. It's not doing it any favors if it wants to stay in my home. Like, this does nothing for me. My favorite cover goes to One True Loves by Elise Bryant. This is gorgeous. This is absolutely gorgeous. It has one of my favorite colors. I love this color. I love this color so much. When I was going back and forth on how to paint this room, I went with pink and yellow. Yellow is my favorite color, but actually pink is not my second favorite color. This type of pink, it's my third favorite color. This is actually my second favorite color. So like, I'm a yellow, this type of purple, and the pink that my door is type of girl. And I was thinking about going with this color, but then I found the wallpaper, and the wallpaper kind of had this color in it. So like, that's how it all came together. That's how the idea came together for this room when I moved into this house. But yeah, favorite cover. It has a pretty dark skinned girl on the cover. Love it, love it, love it. I love it, I love it, love it. The next thing, I don't know how to explain this. The most misunderstood book and the most over-understood book. So basically, when I say over-understood, I think it's overhyped. Like, too many people get this book, and I don't understand why. And then the most misunderstood book is the book that I think people are being really hard on for no reason. So the most over-understood, Hidden Pictures. What do y'all like about this book? Like, too many of y'all get it, and I don't understand what y'all getting. I don't understand what y'all are getting about this book. This book isn't interesting. It isn't clever. It's not even like scary for a horror book. And then what it leans into is domestic thriller, and it's not even good at that. Like, I don't know. This book, I think too many people get it. Too many people get it, and so it's the most over-understood book of all the books that I've read this year. And then the book that I think is the most misunderstood, How to Marry Keanu Reeves in 90 Days. I have thought about this book more than I think I should have thought about this book. I'm trying to realize why this book is sitting at a 2.88 on Goodreads. And I have my reasons. Yes, I'm about to get deep on you. I think that a lot of people thought this book was going to be about this woman actually trying to marry Keanu Reeves in 90 days. And what they ended up getting was a black romance book. And so they're disappointed. That's what I'm going to say. That's all I'm going to say. I think people came into this book thinking this was going to be like this fun book about this girl trying to marry Keanu Reeves. And like, it is, but then this book turns into actually a black romance book. And a lot of people don't read black romance who aren't black. And so I think they're disappointed in this book. They end up, like, they feel duped by the end of this. But, like, that's their own internal bias coming out, because this book is perfectly fine, if you ask me. I think the worst parts of this book is the Keanu Reeves stuff. It becomes a little fan fiction-y when the Keanu Reeves stuff is in it. But if you take this book as what this book actually is, a black romance book about this girl who's obsessed with Keanu Reeves, it's perfectly fine. It's perfect. I give it 3 out of 5 stars. It's perfectly fine if you take it as that. And I think this book is misunderstood because of the title. I think people who are in love with Keanu Reeves are just interested in someone like trying to marry a celebrity, pick up this book, and then they end up getting a black romance book, and that don't fit right with their spirit. Sorry, this is my most misunderstood book of the 3 months that I have been reading. Okay, next we have the most memorable and the most forgettable. Okay, so my most forgettable book goes to The Unwanted Guest. So much so that I am changing my rating on this book to 3 stars. I gave it 4 stars when I read it, but I'm moving it down to 3 stars. This book is so forgettable. I was going through my Goodreads, seeing the books that I've read to get this pile together. I can't even tell you what the plot twist of this book is. I don't know who the whodunit. I don't even know who the unwanted guest is at this point. I don't remember anything about this book. I could honestly reread this book as if I never read it before. I don't know why this book just didn't stick in my head the way that it should have. And so I'm just like, I think this book was just fine. I think I was in the moment and I was like 4 stars, like wow. And then if who done it is who I think done it, it was also obvious who did it. So this book is the most forgettable book that I definitely read. I'm moving it down to 3 stars. It doesn't deserve the 4 that I gave it. And then my most memorable book goes to New York, My Village. Love it, hate it, it's memorable. Like, it's just one of those reading experience. I think you're a reader in one way before you read this book, and you're a reader in another way after you read this book. This book has stuck with me. I don't know if for better or for worse, but this book is the most memorable book that I've read in the past 3 months. Anyways, let me pick up my DNFs. These are all of the books I at least attempted to read. I don't know if you guys can see these. I at least attempted to read for the past 3 months. Good reading year. Starting off as a good reading year. I can only name about 5 of these books that I deeply want to unhaul. Obviously the DNFs, the Megan Mirandas, and everything else I'm perfectly okay with keeping. Like, I think I would revisit in another time in my life. 50 books is obviously a great number to have gotten through in 3 months. But like I said, I always start off strong. I'm a New Year's resolution girly. And so I always start off the new year great. So like, it's not surprising that I've read this many books, because I just have this goal in my mind that I will be able to look at my bookshelf one day and only have like 30 books I haven't read. And so like, we gotta get going. We gotta get going. Every time that's how I keep myself going. I'm a goal-oriented person. That's another thing. I was talking about this on the Before I Let Go live show. A lot of people ask how I read books so fast. Let's take a book for example. Let's take Highly Suspicious. I don't know if you guys can see, but it's dog-eared. A lot of my books are dog-eared. That's how I read them faster. I'm not a fast reader. I set goals. If you're a goal-oriented person, you can be a avid reader, because you just set a goal. So like, I'm like, okay, in a paperback book like this, I like to get to page like 65. I like to read like 65 pages at a time. And so that's how you do it. Your dog ear page 65 and you don't stop reading until you get to page 65. You'll get there. I promise you. You will get to the page that you want to get to, and it won't take that long. I promise. And so once I get to page 65, I get to take a break. And then you do it again. And once you prove to yourself you can do something, you'll be surprised how much you do it. That's the thing about life. Proving to yourself you can do something, and then you have the confidence to keep on doing that thing. I don't know. That's how my mind works. I'm just goal-oriented. I set goals, and I go for those goals. And then once you reach those goals, you set the goals even higher. And you'll be surprised what you can accomplish. But that's how I read so many books. I take the book. I open up the book. I dog ear the page I want to get to, and I keep going. And if you break a book down into like 50 pages, it only takes you like 6 times. You only got to get to page 56 times, and you finish the book, if that makes any sense. That's why I have a disgust for books over 350 by 50 pages. Like, I bet the average book number, the average page count for all of these books will probably land at about 360, maybe probably 330, honestly, is the average. Okay, because I don't like long books, because longer books takes more dog ear, but that's how you get through the books. You just set small goals. Small goals. It's just like when I be doing Peloton, and my girl Ellie Love be like, you can do anything for 15 seconds. You can read 50 pages. It is not hard to read 50 pages a day. So if you just keep constantly reading 50 pages, you'll finish books. It's just a fact of life. You just gotta do it. Anyways, that is the end of this video. I will see you guys in the next one. I'll see you guys next quarter. So we'll be in what? At the end of June? At the end of June, we'll do this again. So it'll be a summer wrap-up. How does that work? Because the end of June is not the summer. It'll be a spring wrap-up. At the end of June, it'll be a spring wrap-up.